not many people will push themselves to that spot where they physically think they can't go on.
The obstacle created an energy shift for me. Crossing that finish line was definitely one of those magical moments.
What we want to do now in the future, it's even bigger.
You guys know that I am obsessed with the real estate game. I'm an obsessed entrepreneur. But one of the things you guys may not know about us is that I'm also really, really obsessed with being able to push myself in a physical manner. And one of the best ways that I've found to do that is to go and challenge yourself with these crazy things that you think you cannot do. And this year we did that through the idea of a marathon. And we really, really pushed ourselves. We is me and my best friend Conor. He's also our project manager at Momentasize. And in this podcast, we're going to break down that obsession, what it was like, the journey of going from running a 3-hour marathon to breaking that into a 2:40 marathon. We dive deep into the strategy that we had there. We dive deep into the preparation, where we were at mentally, and all the different roadblocks that came along the way of having that big goal. I had a blast being able to recap this. It was one of the things that I was truly in awe that we accomplished this year. And without further ado, please help me welcome the Conor Johnston to the podcast. We got Conor Johnston back on the podcast.
It feels good to be back.
A little bit faster this time, huh?
A little bit faster in a new setting. Yeah, a lot has changed in 2024.
Yeah, I know. Since the last time we recorded, we moved offices. We ran a new marathon, got a little bit faster on the marathon, and we're actually all the way to the end of 2024. So if we're recording, we're December 16th, 15th. What is it? 18th, yep. December 18th, yep. Closing out another phenomenal year. Let's talk first a little bit about the marathon and how that unfolded.
I would love to. I'm trying to recall last time we spoke, we hadn't run the first marathon yet.
Were we prepping for it?
Yeah, the goal was to break 3.
Okay, so the first time we had on, we were trying to break 3.
Yeah, rather you have to verify that timeline, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, so when we did that, we ran a 2:58.
2:58 high.
Yeah.
Well, I ran 2:58.48. I think you ran like 2:58.50.
Something like that.
Got you by about 3 seconds.
A couple seconds there. Yeah, and on that one, what I will say is on the 2:58er, you could have dropped me. You could have taken all the gold coins, dropped me, but you didn't. You stuck with me through the cramp and carried me all the way through.
Yeah. Well, that was always the goal, though. We were out there together. We put in that training block together starting late January. We had an agreement going into it. Of course, if one of us were to absolutely blow up in like a fiery way, then the other person was to go on. But you battled. It was mile 22 of that first one. Mile 21, right?
Yeah, it was a massive hill we had to go up. There's a massive hill. We had a massive hill.
For those of you who weren't there in person, it was when like you go from the street onto a sidewalk, you have that like 6 inches of incline. It was that though. That
a little off. There was like just a little from the sidewalk up this or from the main street up this little sidewalk, and just that little bit of elevation change. I had a full left hamstring cramp, and I was like, oh fuck, and kind of like straight legged my way up there. We slowed down on pace. You were like, at that point you could have easily dropped me because I went into a dark place. Is this over for me?
Yeah. And
instead we slowed up on pace a little bit. I worked through the cramp, which was cool. My legs were just feeling so heavy. But I was really in my own head like, hey, is this going to full body cramp? What's happening here? You pulled out that Martin, the caffeine Martin. I remember you. We slowed down pace maybe by 10 seconds. We're running what's average?
Yeah, for those of you, we're going like 6:52 to 6:55 pace, 6:50 to 6:55 pace per mile. And we're averaging that through 20. And then mile 21 came along. That's when the cramp came.
Yeah, the cramp comes. We slowed down to probably about a 7:10 pace, exactly. Right in that range.
So we dropped about 10-15 seconds.
Yeah, and you came kind of like a doctor. You came out, pulled the Martin, ripped it open, handed it to me with the caffeine. And I remember like I ate it and it was disgusting. Like I ate it. I was having some problems and I spit the first little bit out and then I shoved it back in. And
with your hand you put it back in your mouth. Yeah.
But once I got that down, what's crazy about those moments, you think you hit that crazy wall and that it's all over. And then once I got that in, about like sticking through it, sticking in that pain and just like not giving up on it, it took a couple miles to get through. But what I found wild is we went through, cramp happens, you stuck with me, you kind of lifted me through. And then mile 25, all of a sudden, you see this finish line, right? You fought through the hardest point, you see this finish line, and then boom, mile 25, going from having to slow down, mile 25, I think we ran our fastest mile of the race.
We did. Yeah, we popped in at like 6:30.
Yeah.
across the finish line.
Do you think that's a mental thing? Like, do you think that that's obviously it's a fueling thing when you cramp, fitness and fueling.
Yeah.
You think that's a mental thing, that magic twilight when you get to the end, or what do you think that is?
That's one of the coolest aspects, especially about running, competitive running. But I do think psychologically, absolutely, and you find that across all sport. But not many people will push themselves to that spot where they physically think they can't go on, but there is that extra percentage there. There absolutely is that extra percentage there, and you went and found it on that day.
Yeah, it's always wild when then you pull through that, like the belly of the beast, and then you have that final mile there. And I remember, like, it's also funny because you run 26 miles on both marathons we ran. You run all this mileage, and initially, like, these miles are going by, and then the last mile or so, you are just searching. Like on both of them, I'm searching, like I'm looking up ahead, I'm just waiting for the turns. The last mile feels like it's the longest stretched out thing you could ever be in.
I know. And what's amazing to me is think back on like when that cramp hit you at Eugene. That was a 3-hour barrier back in April. It was pretty much the same spot in your first ever marathon where you essentially crashed out, right?
Yeah, full crash out. I did a full crash and burn.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't fueling. You didn't really have a running background at that point. But
yeah, I would say pure rookie.
But like psychologically, you went probably straight back to that moment.
Oh yeah, I thought it happened again. Yeah. That's exactly. Yeah. I was like, that same thing happened, but we were able to fight through it. You know?
The fact that we had each other, it was amazing to see you be able to push through the physical challenge and tap into, our fastest gear of the day to end the marathon.
Yeah, and it was cool. Like I'll never forget. It was one of those magical moments where you cross the finish line. You set out to do this thing to break 3, and we were able to do that together. And it was just an amazing feeling, to be able to go get it done and hit a goal. Like that's what we set out to do. We hit the goal. And then of course in pure fashion. So the first marathon we went on, we set our goal, and there's a lesson. Like what I think now in reflecting, there's a lesson, right? And you can see I was just over doing a podcast with Natalie and Brandon Dotson, who are big major thinkers, the 10X concept, 10X idea, right? And you can see it in even this small goal setting that we had. We first were like, hey, we're going to do this marathon. Let's break 3 hours, right? That was our goal. We set that as our goal. Okay. And we hit it. Then all of a sudden you came to me and you're like, hey dude, what should we do next? And you came up with the crazy idea of running a 240.
Yeah.
Right? Same year, 240.
8 months later.
8 months later. Where did you get the 240 from, by the way? Where did you?
I think that's a barrier like in the marathoning world that it's like it requires like a level of athleticism, but still many people can get there with extremely hard work and consistent work. And that was just in my mind. I was like, that's the barrier that we need to go after. 240.
Yeah, and 240. So from a pace side, to do 240, you're running 606.
606 average for 26 miles. 606
average. And when Conor first pitched that idea, I'm like, dude. I was like, yes, but how?
I think there was some doubt, right?
Oh, for
a little bit.
Not
like,
more than some.
Are you sure? Like, what kind of? Are you sure we can do that? That's almost a minute faster per mile.
Yeah, no.
I almost cramped at mile 22 on the 3 hour.
Yeah,
I knew you could do it. I knew.
I didn't go into it, and even because I'd never experienced like a training block, right? And what I was going to from a lesson side is, whatever goals we set for ourselves and then start working towards, right? There's magic in doing that. And the key is set big enough goals that scare you, that really make you, because that 240 really scared me.
Yeah.
Like it actually legitimately scared me. To run a 6-minute mile was already difficult for me. Just one
6-minute mile
was really hard for me, like really difficult. So then how are you going to stretch that across 26? And so it's a lesson. In the same year, we set 2 goals. We set a break 3 hour and we trained for that.
Yeah.
Our action was aligned with that. So that's what we got. And then you could see we set a way scarier goal, way more challenging. And then we started training for that, and boom, the same thing unfolds.
Yeah. And I think going into it, we were talking about percentages, and we'll get into the process too. I know you mentioned trusting that process, but getting into it, you were giving yourself about a 50-50 chance of thinking that you could actually get it done.
Yeah, on race. I wasn't telling anyone else that, but I know, for sure.
Yeah, you and I had many just intimate moments together leading up to that, and a lot of yeah, a lot of miles shared where you could express really what you were feeling about that race.
Yeah, if you were in my head, I had many nights laying in bed, getting my boys to sleep, just trying to get over the fact that I really had this like image of blow up mile 18 because it was because of the unknowns, right? Yeah. Like in training, when you're training, sure, if you can make a tempo run feel good, that's like a 6 mile thing. You can make that feel good. That's one thing. But the funny thing is, it didn't really feel good. Like when I'm doing the 6 mile tempo, I'm hurting. Yeah, like it hurts.
Well, we remember that one workout. We had a 5 mile tempo. Now there's more details to it. You had a lift in the morning. I think you lifted at like 5:30.
Yeah,
4:30 maybe 4:30 a.m.
Early,
you had an early lift, and then we met. I think we met early. We met at like 6:30 for a 5 mile tempo. This was pretty early on in our training block. The race was in December. I think this was early September.
Yep.
And we set off for a 5 mile tempo, and we were just rounding the 4 mile mark. So 2 miles to go, mile 4, mile 5. And you were hurting badly. We only had 3 miles at 6 minute pace behind us. And it was a moment, actually another moment where you pushed through that pain and then figured it out while running and you completed the 5 miles. But that did nothing but instill fear at the idea of having to do 26 of those.
Exactly. Yeah, on that one, just so everybody knows what happened, we were like listening to music on a phone as well. Like, so we're listening to music and we were running and we were turning to go on mile 4, closing into mile 5, and I was hurting so bad that initially I said to Conor, I'm like, hey, you take the phone. Like, you keep running, take the phone, I'm out on this one. I'm going to close the door. And then the moment of when I was supposed to hand the phone over to him, something in my head's like, no, you can't quit. Like, you cannot quit. Like, work through it, and it's just funny. Then I stayed in it. You work through it. Once you decide in your mind that you're not going to give up, right? Because that's what it is. You hit this pain train. Yeah. And then the question is, how long are you willing to stay in the pain train? Yeah. And, that's what, it's so funny though, because a 5 mile tempo, I was like, how are we ever going to train to translate this into 26?
Yeah, so. I know. And credit, absolute major credit to you, because I've been there before where I've been in situations where I've been able to trust the process. Yeah. Not really understanding what the outcome was. I had my goals, and my coach at Portland set our goals and said, hey, I think you can run this. Here's the process. Here's your training plan. Trust that I am going to get you there. With this, Eva, our coach, and my wife, she set the plan out, and you hadn't been in that situation before. And I think that was really hard for you to wrap your head around. And I just have to give credit to you because you did. In the end, whether you thought the process was working, you stuck with it. And
we trained it. Yeah, exactly. It's a lesson. You're so right. It's a lesson of learning how to trust the process. And if you want to do something you've never done, get yourself around people who've done it. Yes. And then let them coach you, listen to them. They've been through the process, even if it seems so wild and foreign. Because what seemed so crazy to me was, again, like, okay, how is this speed workout plus long, slow mileage going to relate into or translate into 26 miles at race pace? Or the most we had run was a 13 mile run at race pace.
And that was us going rogue on the training plan.
On the training plan, yeah. And the emotions that you go through, like at miles 6, 7, 8, when you're doing 13 miles, like how hard it is, working through it, etc. Right? And so it's a great lesson of trusting the process. If you want to go where you've never been, find people who've been there, let them help coach you, and then trust the process throughout. Even if it seems like the work you're putting into it isn't gonna pay off.
Yeah. Because in that training block, the furthest we ever ran was 20 miles. Yeah. And in those 20-mile long runs, we sprinkled in some race pace efforts. Yeah. But again, it's this idea like, okay, well, I have another 10K to go after this 20-mile long run, which I'm feeling dead after to begin with. Yeah. Like, where is that supposed to come from? Like, how am I supposed to find that on race day?
And that's the crazy mental game, and we're doing the training block, you're trusting the process. The other crazy part about when you're going out to do something like that, the amount of discipline and consistency that has to be built into it, right? And then the inevitable roadblocks of life that'll come. So the one we had is right in the middle of the training block, probably the peak, most important part of it. You went out overseas for 2 weeks and we had a baby, and so I remember right before it was creating a lot of tension when you go to do something big. It was creating a lot of tension because to train like that, we've got the business we're trying to build. I've got beautiful family we're trying to build. You got running you're trying to do, and there's only so much a lot of time that gets put in, and so it's creating a lot of tension. And the one thing I could try to eliminate was the running piece, right? So I remember calling you like, hey dude, I don't think I can do the marathon. And that was what, halfway into the block, or probably 2/3?
I think closer to half.
We're trailing.
Because it was late September.
Late September.
Like right before Elodie was born.
Yeah.
So it was probably like the 20th of September, and it was like 4 or 5 days later Elodie comes and things changed. But yeah, it was probably the 20th of September.
Yeah, right in that range. I'm like, I'm not racing. So I let the foot off the gas on that one.
3 weeks.
Have the baby. I ran for 3 weeks no running, but it probably also impacted you because now you were in Portugal and you're like, are we going to race still or not, right?
Yeah. If you ask Coach Eva, wasn't disciplined in those 3 weeks. When I heard that it was likely not going to be a reality, just with how crazy life was getting with Elodie coming into the world, and just where you were at in family life and work with the business. Yeah, I let off the gas a little bit. But we all came back together and it was, it happened.
Yeah, it did happen. And I remember going from like, you came back and Elodie was born. I didn't run for 3 weeks and we started running a little bit. Again, I was just running with you. And just slowly but surely, just how it goes, you know.
First you're like, okay, well, how can we make this happen? Maybe we can get 2 treadmills in the garage.
Yeah.
And if Elodie ever wakes up at 4:30, 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m., then we can just get off the treadmills and you can look after Elodie. That was like the initial idea. I was like, well, that's going to be crazy, but yeah, I'm down if that's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
For you to get back into the training block. And then Shay granted you the ability basically to pursue that dream as well in the mix, which is really special.
That's what I love about her so much. She is a woman of mass support in whatever dream, whatever idea, whatever I come up with. You know, it's the key thing that you could ask for in a partner for anyone who isn't married yet or is looking or analyzing or thinking about it. Somebody who will support you in your dreams and just be there and encourage you to make it happen in whatever way it is. And I think both you and I both are very blessed and lucky to have women like that to back us, to make us the best men we can become, and to back us in our dreams, right? Because that whole thing, it's so crazy if you think about it. If that was the opposite, if I approached her and I was like, hey, things have stabilized now, you know, the baby's been born, it's things are going okay here, do you think we can make this happen? She could have very easily been like, you're so selfish, or, you know, whatever. And she's like, no, let's find a way to make it work, right? And so she's that's what I love about her, and that's why I'm married to her. Yeah. They call it marrying up, I think. So
you definitely married up.
Yeah, baby. I know. So we had the training block, we hit it, and then I think the big thing for me is we're back to running. And as we go in, like as the time's getting closer, because we're also trying to build this business, right? Yeah. So we're trying to do this big marathon thing and we're trying to build this business. And we've got a lot of pressure, demand that comes on there, time demand, pure time demand, right? And what about the feeling like as you're grinding towards the race day? Tell me a little bit about what that was like internally for you in your mind as we're gearing towards race day.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate to have you as basically a mirror to me, and your willingness and dedication to all that you do it makes those moments pretty easy for me, where I can dedicate the time to my work, I can dedicate the time to my family, which is Eva and I, and then finding those hours in the day to actually execute on the miles. We made it happen. It was I mean, I was absolutely nervous. It was a goal that scared me big time as well. I think you put it at 50-50. I had myself 70-30-ish, maybe sometimes a little more confident, sometimes a little less. But the weeks leading up into it, it got scarier and scarier as like, I was like, okay, please, like, what do we got left? A month, 5 weeks, 4 weeks. And then it was like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. Okay, like, where are we at right now? Yeah.
And what's crazy is in that time too, you're so ready for the training block to end, because it's just the process is so demanding, right? Like, it is. On your body, you have these different challenges. I mean, both you and I in this training block, forget about the mental side, and then after we decided we're back at it, we both at the peak of a training block, when you're demanding that much of yourself, inevitably you're going to have also some sort of tweak or injury. And that happened. Actually, both of us had within 30 days of the race?
Yeah, definitely. I was a little further out. I was probably 30 days. You were 25 to 20 days out. Yeah.
You had your Achilles, was it calf Achilles that it went?
Achilles flared up, but it was a whole calf issue. It was just real tightness in the calf.
And what's crazy is like for 3 days you almost can't walk, right? And so you think it's over.
I was beginning in November, and I was in California with Eva and her family watching Maeve race WCC, West Coast Conference Championships. Cool running scene, and I remember saying to her on that Friday, like, this sucks. Like, I can hardly walk. Like, how am I supposed to get back training? I actually don't think this marathon is going to happen. She kept me level-headed there and just said, well, take it day by day, continue to work it out and feel it out. And within like 72 hours, she spent a lot of work just massaging it and taking care of it. And I was back running gingerly the following week, which was a big deal. Yeah. And but it was tough because I thought that was it for me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and exactly.
About a week later, you came up with plantar fasciitis and like a strained calf, essentially.
Yeah, because of the plantar fasciitis, we're on a long run, the calf goes, and it's crazy the discouragement that happens when something like that happens. Because you feel like if you lose, when you're in the peak of that, every day counts. You're counting your mileage, you're banking on stacking it, and then when you lose a couple days, it's funny. Like you feel like the world is ending. You feel like your fitness is going backwards. You feel like, oh, I'm like, honestly, I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. Like I'm not going to catch up on the fitness. I don't have the running. I'm counting on every day to bank, and you lose 3, 4, 5 days, and you feel like, quite honestly, I'm like, is this over?
Well, it actually almost gives you, at least for me, I hate to admit this, but there was this small little devil on my shoulder saying, well, this is your out. Like, now you don't have to train 7 days a week while trying to grow this business life is getting so crazy. What a perfect excuse to say, hey, I'm not actually going to be able to get there to the start line.
Dude, and I know the exact same devil, but here's how you can know if you're committed once you have an injury is what you're doing about the injury.
Absolutely.
You know, like, are you going all out with everything you can to improve it, fix it, rehab it, etc. That's where you can know if you're in or out, if you're going to let the little devil win or not, because you know how hard you're rehabbing it, working it, getting into it, that's how fast it'll actually improve and get better.
So true.
And that's exactly, if you look at like how much work you did on your Achilles and how much work and even money I invested to go to the PTs to help, etc., to try to get it fixed, right? I was seeing a chiropractor,
Dan, physio
to get it fixed as fast as possible, right? You know, spending whatever the money was to make it work. So that is one thing you can see. No matter what, it's going to happen. If you let that little devil be like, oh, I'm just hurt, and then you pull off the gas, then you could see somebody who wants to compete and do it versus somebody who maybe has been looking for that out.
I know.
In the race. So when you're racing, it's crazy. We had a couple. Well, let's go into the full race, but we had a couple people when you're racing, even you can see like some little tweak happens, because even when you're racing, you're going to have a tweak. We had them ourselves, and you could see somebody who was letting that tweak be their out.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. If you can, you're searching for them at certain points, like oh, Eva missed our fueling, which we'll get into. Like we missed our fuel stop at 16, so well, that's me out.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm drained.
Yeah. Let's go deep in the race now. So race day comes, etc. From like night of, I remember how I felt, because I was 50-50 going into it. And then I will say one thing, it's like once we were there, game on, I was just purely focused on my controllables.
It was switched on, and I felt that we had a 7-hour car ride down, and it was lighthearted on the drive down, which is the way it needed to be. We listened to a really nice podcast of David Roche doing an unbelievable thing, breaking the Leadville 100 record. And I actually pulled some nuggets from that podcast 24 hours before our race. But then, once we arrived at our Airbnb in Sacramento, I felt the energy shift from both of us. Eva even switched on a little bit. And it was game time. Which we've been there before in our soccer careers, and in other races as well. But this was for sure one of the hardest situations I was entering into, and it was like a real heavy focus on executing the task at hand.
Yeah, it's a mental game the night before, because it's like this interesting anxiety, excitement, like nerves, pit in your stomach, because you know that no matter what, there is no way around the amount of pain that you're going to go through. It is an inevitable journey to get to where you want to go. And to put yourself through that, like, you have to try to compartmentalize that out and just focus in on, again, for me, it was all the controllables. But I remember like just laying there with our feet up, and I was just trying to move away from the amount of pain I knew we were going to go through, and just focus in on, again, controllables, fueling, showing up, fueling. That's about, once you get to the game there, it's all, I would say for me, the biggest component is fueling and mental, like mental mantras and the fueling component. Those are your controllables, and let's fucking go.
Absolutely. And the fueling we did, what was it? Like, it was first thing in the morning at 4:30 a.m. when you were still researching, like, what's the right way to fuel before.
Well, the water was the big mistake.
Yeah.
I was looking up, like, how much water should you actually take it. It actually, well, it was smart because it's counterintuitive. You think you need to drink all this water when actually you could be flushing out a bunch of important essential electrolytes and salt that you have. So a lot of people will go and they think like, oh, I'm clear, I'm hydrated. Peeing clear, so I'm hydrated, when actually that's dehydrating you, and it's actually not working to your advantage. You're flushing critical electrolytes and things you need out. And so that was mainly what I was like. I was trying to negotiate in my head, should I drink another whole one of these waters or not? And then when I Googled it, like, don't do it.
You were continuing to battle. The only two data points that you had to pull from are these two previous marathons where you've ran into the same exact problem, and it's cramping late into the race. So I tripled down on the fuel for that exact reason. I even adjusted. The original strategy was, fuel every 20 minutes, and I went to fuel every 15 minutes. So I want to step into the start line. So it was, race day. Race day was you got up at 3:45. I think you were at the breakfast table by 4, and I crawled out of the room just after that. You're looking spry.
Don't worry, Daddy made you a bagel.
Yeah, he did. The bagel was in the toaster, warm, ready for me to peanut butter. That's what I had for breakfast: bagel and peanut butter.
Banana.
And I actually didn't touch the banana. No, I didn't want any fruit, fiber. I didn't want to go there. Any extra fiber than I needed. It was about 4. We were eating our breakfast, just kind of sipping on water, coffee. And then it was really just like an hour and 15 minutes of hanging around.
Yeah, you were talking shit.
Yeah, well, you started that actually. And I just let you know that if it had to come to it, I was going to go out the gates like a bat out of hell, drop you in the first 3 miles, and then settle into 6:06 pace. But no, that wasn't the plan, and that's obviously not what happened on race day when the gun went off.
Breakfast was good. Tackled that, teed everything up, it's so interesting. Those marathons are so cool because you wake up so early. You go through the experience, you need to eat, and the nerves, like the buildup of the nerves, it just like it starts to build and come. And then like we got dropped off, we did the warm up. You're going up that hill, you're going past other runners. It's still super dark out, and then you get up to this finish line. All of a sudden, it's like quiet, and then there's 10,000 people all of a sudden just at the start line.
I know it's a crazy energy that you don't get to. I remember saying it to you. I was like, well, this would be so cool if communities did this like every day. So
10,000.
It was just a really wild energy. And like a excited and nervous energy. You could see like the pros doing their like more serious warm up over here, and then you had like the general runner population that were kind of hanging out, all nervous energy, getting ready for the race. Everyone's kind of in their own head. It's a unique experience for sure.
There's about like, would you say, I mean, hundreds, but you think they're pushing 1,000 porta potties over there?
That was ridiculous.
Well, how many? I mean, there's more than you could ever think.
I would hesitate. No, I would probably bet on it being almost 1,000 porta potties. No, okay, not that many, because there was lines of about 25 people. So let's go 250 porta potties, 250 to 300 porta potties, but like in a straight line. So that's something that most people have never seen in their lives.
I'd never seen it before. And then the problem is we're going to do our final pre-race, let go, and we're standing in the back of these lines.
Let go.
Let go. And the calculation was, 2 minutes. There's 25 people in every.
Doing back to the napkin math. Okay, well, if that person, exactly. It's going to be a 50-minute line, essentially.
Race starts in 20 minutes. So then
people weren't making the start line.
No, they were not.
But they were okay. There was like the 4-hour, 4:30, 5-hour corrals. They had a little more time than we did because we were at pretty much
Yeah, the first
front.
after the pros, we were the first corral, trying to make it happen. And
I hadn't gone to the bathroom yet either.
No, you had not. You had
In
none.
fact, it was a big problem.
Yeah,
Big problem.
yeah.
Held on to everything that I had.
Yeah. What did you ever in the race feel like you're gonna shit your pants?
Yeah, mile 12. We talked about it a little bit. I think that was probably my hardest mile.
Because you felt like you had to
mentally.
shit your pants.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, my dinner was still in my body from the night before, and my breakfast, my coffee.
Yeah, it was all held in.
That's a nerve-wracking thing.
No, that's a nerve-wracking thing.
So when we realized, like, well, it's gonna be a 50-minute bathroom experience if we actually wanted to make it to the front of the line, then I was like, okay, well, hopefully my stomach's gonna turn. Hopefully it turns in the first half because my legs will be a little fresher. If I had to hop into a porta potty, say goodbye to you for a minute, then I could have that minute experience.
So that was what was going on in your head.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was the calculus. I was like, well, this is going to come. Like 26 miles, the stomach is going to turn at some point. Hoping that it would happen in the first half. And it was mile 12 when I finally felt something in my stomach. And then obviously that's where your whole focus goes. Like that's all you're thinking about. It's like, okay, well, I'm not fighting it. Like I'm going to actually like let this play out. If my body needs to go to the bathroom and take a shit, then it was going to be mile 12, mile 13 that was going to happen. And so then my focus, I was just like eyeing when's the next porta potty going to come up. And when we hit that next porta potty, when I realized we were going by the next porta potties, stomach pain actually went away and it never came back. So it was lucky.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the fight or flight mode that comes in, you know. What's wild about the race, like I remember it's when it starts, you get the first, as predicted, we were like, okay, the first 3 to 5 miles are going to just be deleted from pure energy, you know, like just pure, everyone else is there.
We talked about that too.
Exactly. You said like the first 3 to 5 miles are just going to be deleted because of energy. Hold back. Don't, from a race strategy side, this is where the strategy comes in, you know. We studied the course a lot and we looked at, they had a really cool piece of video technology where you could go and do mile by mile, see what it looked like to visualize yourself going through and doing it. And the race data showed, this is where the strategy comes in, right? You can train, but strategy is important. The race data showed that all the runners who had their PRs or did well, they did not like rip out of the gate. The natural thing, because of the energies, et cetera, is to rip out of the gate. And because you see some people that you're like, how is this person running fast? You know, like in your head. Yeah, there's no business.
You're sizing up all the time.
Yeah, you're subconsciously, whatever it is, you're just doing it. That's just the thing about it. It is a game versus you versus you, but that's what it is. But we studied that, so we wanted to hold back, but let as many of the first miles delete themselves as possible. And for me, it was like through 5, 6, I felt pretty good. I mean, I don't know if you have a memory or a recall of what that was like, the first block of miles.
Yeah, I think you did a great job again. I think at actually holding us back in a positive way. Because I was getting caught up in that energy too. And I do. It was first 5 miles. I remember thinking to myself, like my heart rate's probably 120, 130.
Yeah, it felt calm and
like
smooth.
So comfortable. But again, it's if you haven't run a marathon before, there's nothing like having hundreds and hundreds of people like right around you. Yeah. It just carries you.
There's something about that, and it's wild when you run in a group. It really is a carry. It's an energy where you just delete. Like I remember the first ones, they just got deleted. Yeah.
And then it was when that pack started to shed and gaps started to form, people started to settle in, realizing that, we went out way too fast, or hey, I'm picking up the pace. You kind of found a little more positioning, mile 5, mile 6, and that's where we kind of started working to just attach ourselves to what looked like groups that were kind of clicking off 6 minute to 606 miles. So they must have been that 237 to 240 group. We kind of found one group in particular that we stuck with for, if I recall correctly, probably 5-6 miles.
Yeah, and you did a phenomenal job of making sure we were staying connected, because there was a couple times, like, so when we turned 6, 7, 8, I started to feel it. I was like, okay, 6, 7, 8. I'm like 7, 8. Like, dang, I'm feeling this a little bit. 9. I very specifically remember being in mile 9 and thinking to myself, like, dang, I'm feeling this. When you look at my watch,
17 miles to go.
9 and 10, my heart. It's because that's when my heart rate spiked up for the first time, and similar to yours, just stayed when you look at the data. But mile 9, I remember like being in my own head and thinking to myself, like, holy, we're 9 miles in and I feel like this.
Yeah.
What an interesting, it was like the first little move. And then I was just trying to compartmentalize, like stick with it, stick on it, stick to fuel plan, think about my next fuel move, right? That's all I was really, all I was focused on is almost like a video game, stay the pace, fuel game, stay the pace, fuel game. And that when I first had that mental pain, like you let go of it. And then all of a sudden, next thing I knew, we were in mile 13. Right, halfway there, mile 13, right? Because you just start to like delete these miles, like they just start to kind of go away.
Yeah, and that what was funny about the halfway mark is in preparation for this marathon, that was kind of supposed to be the celebratory marker, like, okay, now the race begins.
Yeah.
But that race obviously began for both of us a couple miles before we wanted to.
You were feeling, so you were feeling good, and then 12 was your...
12, the stomach started to turn, and that's where I was like, oh shit. But physically, I was still tuned in. It got really hard for me when we made it through the halfway point. We were kind of in no man's land for that mile, if you recall.
Yep.
And then this crew of like 4 or 5 guys,
college runners.
Yeah, they were four college runners. They just like came striding by us.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well that's our group right there. Let's get attached.
Yep.
And it was actually one of our fastest miles of the day. We got in behind them, and then I was like, how are they feeling so good? Because they were kind of chatting. They were chatting to each
one
other.
Guy was like kind of cockily, kind of like cocky chatting, like almost like too much.
Yeah,
you know, that's at least what I was thinking.
Actually,
me too.
I was hurting.
I was hurting. I was like, and they finally had a group to attach on. I remember what's funny is it's like you have this really interesting unspoken language that's also happening, especially between you and I, because we've been running together for so long. But we probably said less than 5 sentences to each other, but always you were feeling what was happening. So you were carrying me at times. You could feel the energy, you know, or even almost these like energy nods. And I remember we caught up behind him, and same thing. I was like listening to the guy just running right in there. I was trying to just hang on, and he's like la 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 la. You know?
Well, that's where I really started to internalize, like, holy shit, I'm not feeling good right now, because I am nowhere close to what they're feeling like. Is that how I'm supposed to be feeling at this point? Or
just so everybody knows, we blasted by the guy that was running his mouth.
That was a great feeling.
Yeah, he was walking
mile 24 and a half.
He was walking, and we blasted by him.
Should have said something. He felt the energy.
Yes. So we did attach to them. That was like mile 14 though, or so.
Exactly.
Right?
So it was mile 14 to 15 about. And then they were ultimately they were running about 5:55, 6-minute pace, which it was just that much too fast for us, especially at that point in the race. And we found ourselves in no man land again. When I say no man land, there's people everywhere. It's a massive race, but
you're not in a herd.
We're working together. We're not attached to any other groups. No one's tracking behind us at this point, mile 15. But in my head, I'm like, okay, well, Eva, our coach Eva, is supposed to be at mile 16. That was kind of like the next psychological win.
we had an unspoken hiccup. Like we didn't talk about it, but we were actually supposed to see her at 62 minutes in.
10 miles about.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
We just didn't say anything about it. We just kept running.
And that stop was mostly for you.
Yes.
That pit stop, right?
Yes, it was in my head because I was ready for my
I was thinking about it. I was like, well, we missed that one. But we didn't say one word to each other.
Yeah, no. Keep going.
So we missed
That's
that.
all I said.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, actually, though, what were you thinking in mile 10?
We said nothing.
Were you pissed off, though?
No. All I said was, okay, what I had done, I said, thank goodness I pre-fueled, because I was going every 50. I had 4 Martins. I was going every 15 minutes, 9 salt pills.
9 salt
which
pills,
was ridiculous.
Really
I was
crazy.
eating them like every.
Colton Gale, Ben Local. Yeah. He's the one that.
He said preload
part
on
of that. Yeah, he
exactly.
parted that information on us. Which was
preload
nice.
on him, and I was enjoying. Like, what's interesting, I never thought I could eat at that pace. Like, I never think I could take fuel down at that pace.
Yeah.
And I was enjoying it. Like, it was part of like it was sort of like, because I think in my head, I'm like, okay, no matter what, this is going to help me. So if I can get this down, this is going to help me. You know, I can preload this fuel. If I can preload, you know, most of the time people are taking like 2 or 3 gels per hour, and I was doing 4. So I was doing every 15 minutes, I was hitting it. And so at mile 10, I was out of fuel. I was ready for my next grab. Yeah. And I just thought to myself, all I thought to myself is like, something must have happened, and thank goodness I pre-fueled.
Actually, recalling, and we've talked about this moment, but it was like it was right when we fell off that group, the 602 group. We ran a 602. The group was going like 5:55, 6-minute pace. We dropped off close to mile 15, and I actually handed you Morton.
Yes,
one of my extra ones.
Yes,
it was like a energy thing.
You said nothing.
I felt something, and that was probably psychologically knowing that we missed the fuel station at 10.
And I was out. Yeah,
and you were out of fuel. So I handed you that Morton. I wasn't really consuming them very frequently up to that point. I was eating one. I was every 4 miles I was having one. Yeah. Mile 4, mile 8, mile 12, mile 16. I knew that we were going to see Eva, and she was supposed to give me a caffeine Morton as well as the electrolyte drink.
Yep.
And so I was like, well, I'll be fine then if I can get that as well.
Yeah, because you tried to offer it to me. I said no. You said I'm not going to eat it. I ate it.
Yeah.
That helped me substantially.
Yeah, well, ultimately, I think so, right? Because later on in the race, we could talk about it. But then mile 16 came, and Eva was up on our left. My sister and her partner, Jacob, were on the right. And Eva, I could see like Eva was like stoked to see us. We made that connection.
Yeah. She started running next to us.
Yeah, and I was like, I realized
I was stoked to see her.
Yeah, because this was this was the fueling opportunity that you were waiting for.
Yeah.
And she runs by and we run by up to her, and then she starts running next to us.
Yeah, we're expecting to do a handoff.
Yeah, 6-minute pace, and she's running by, and I mean, I see that she's got nothing in her hands, and she's like, guys, like, don't worry, I've got it sorted out. I've talked to the guys up front, but I don't have any of your items. Like, I don't have your water or your gels. Yeah. And you were like, oh fuck. You're off my right shoulder. Eva was on my left, and you were just like, "Oh fuck!" As we're sprinting at this point, and then I just piggybacked on that energy, and I looked at her, and I was like, "This married couple, and I love Eva, and without her, this wasn't going to happen." And so much credit to her. But in the moment, I looked at her, and I was like, "What?"
Like, how could this happen?
Yeah.
This is our main drop.
Yeah. And that's where you picked up the energy. You stepped in and you started speaking up and saying like, Eva, don't worry about it. It's all good. Like we're gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because she was jogging with us, and she kind of fell off, and I was doing this hand gesture, and she thought I was waving her away, but I actually wanted her to join us for longer because it was a nice energy boost.
Yeah. It's funny like what happens, because I was in the belly of the beast from 9 to 16, and then I was waiting for that fuel, and interestingly enough, the obstacle created an energy shift for me. It was interesting, right? Like that could have either deflated us or do the opposite. Like most of the time, actually something that would deflate me, but for some reason it was like it snapped me out of the belly of the beast and then into like, okay, game mode. Like, what are we gonna do? We gotta figure this out.
I think that's you in life though, with positive pivots. So it was in that moment where you did come through big time with a massive positive pivot. And that was probably the darkest moment, one of the darkest moments of the race for me.
See, isn't that wild how you like those to play out? Because from 9 to 16, I was in the belly, didn't know if we could come out. And then 16, I snapped out. I was like, okay, we got to figure this out. 17, she did an amazing job, and we had some other great friends who came through, and they pulled out some gels for us. Yes. And mile 17, we picked them up. But what was kind of the wild card of that is these were gels we'd never trained with. You're like at the peak of your feeling like really not feeling good. You're at the peak, you're turning into mile 17, 18 where like things are starting to turn, and now we got to do a gel that we've never tasted before. So.
And you went first.
Yeah.
And those things were
they're gnarly.
They are gnarly. They were caffeine gels. It was amazing how you could feel that. It was like a huge head rush.
That's what it was wild to me. So we grab them, we hit them. They taste disgusting. Like first go at it, like I was like, oh my goodness, but just get it down a little bit, get a little more down. And like this one was like 2 or 3 minutes after we took that gel, the boost I got, like the boost I got when we turned, because of that fuel and maybe because of mileage, whatever, when we turned 18 through mile 18, in my head I was like, we fucking got this. This is our race. Like we got this.
You said it out loud.
We fucking got this.
Which I needed in that moment, because again, from 16 to 18 was tough for me, and then it got really hard for me 18 to 22. Really, really hard.
Were you deep at 18? Did you go 18 to 22? Was it really hard that entire time? Because I was like 18, I was like, we fucking got this. And for the next 4, I was feeling strong.
No, that wasn't the case for me at all. I actually remember keying off of you for those miles big time.
Yeah.
Where I think in those 9 to 16 miles that you were speaking about, you can kind of feel like we're running side by side, but you can feel.
Oh no, you were
driving the energy,
you were driving
right?
it. Stay connected. You were moving. I was just like coating off. You trying to just hang in, hang on.
And then
that's all I was thinking mentally.
But that role shifted completely from 18 to 22. I remember that vividly. Just sticking onto you. You were setting the pace, driving on like we were floating in that 606 to 610 range, and at that point I was like, well, if we can just stay consistent here, we're gonna have a day. A good day.
Yeah, exactly. So from 18 to 22, I was feeling fucking good. Like I was like, we got this. We fucking got this. I knew I was like, let me try. I knew I was starting to turn a corner right at the 21. I was like, damn, okay, like this is starting to hit me. I said, if I could get one more of these fucking gels down, that could carry me through. So probably got like half, maybe three quarters of it down. And then mile 22, we hit that hill and bridge. And what's crazy is I thought it was over again. Like legs started to feel heavy, get really heavy. And we started going up the hill, and the left hamstring starts to feel like wants to go. And I just kept saying like, you can't fucking go. No. Like I was literally saying to myself, we're not gonna fucking go. And you're shifting the way you're running. Like I wasn't straightening my leg all the way out because I was in fear that I felt if I straightened it all the way out, it would cramp. And luckily, this is pure luck. If there was more hill to run, I think it cramps. But literally, as I'm like convincing myself I'm not gonna cramp, we started being able to go downhill.
Blessed.
And then blessing. And then like as we start to ease out of it, what I again feel wild is the legs felt so heavy like they were going to cramp. And then as you turn to mile 23, from 22 to 23, all of a sudden that feeling went away. I was still fighting for dear life to keep going, but it didn't feel like I was going to cramp again.
And I first time in my running career, I've cramped playing soccer. I've cramped while sleeping, which is just a nightmare when you wake up and you cramp. But
I've had a couple of those actually since the race, like where I'm laying on the couch with the baby or something, and I make a move and my freaking. It's because I haven't been hydrating. That's
I know. Off that cadence. Fueling cadence. But mile 22, right in that moment is when I started to feel my right hamstring go as well, and I was unfamiliar with like the challenge of having to like I know what's about to happen. But since it's never happened to me before, I wasn't sure like, okay, like how much do I have to correct my like running gait?
Your gait, your cadence, and
it had to shift bigly because I felt it. Like I felt it pulling every time I lifted my right leg up. Like I could feel my butt cheek wanting just to grab my knee. Like it was like this, like come here, like, it was a cramp. It was.
Did you have the same thing where you didn't want to straighten your leg, or you just but no cramp actually occurred.
No cramp ever came. I warded it off.
Was it the same thing? Was it, you think, because up the hill? And then
it's when it happened, going up the hill on the bridge.
Yeah. And then as we were going down, it was able to like ease off?
Not for me. I had to battle that for actually the remaining of the race.
The entire race?
Yeah, it ebbed and flowed. I feel like I got into like a battle like that. You could feel it coming on, and then you adjust your stride.
Cadence, yeah.
And then you're running regularly again, but it just kept coming back and back. But never obviously to the point where it happened because we made it to the finish line without cramping. But yeah, once it arrived in 22, it never fully went away.
Yeah. So you were dealing with that all the way through 22, 23. So you were in the belly of the beast from 18 to 22.
Yeah.
Did you ever come out of it, or did you?
Yeah, I did. I remember specifically when I did. It was 24 and a half.
Yeah.
Because I recognized someone from our hometown, Sonoma. My hometown is Sonoma. And
as we were going down that like little thing in that channel right there.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. They corral you into one side of the street, and you take this left-hand turn coming up to mile 25. And he was sitting right there on the corner with this group just like cheering on, and then it was funky. We just made eye contact, and I was like, is that who I think it is? It was Danny Contreras, and then he like lit up with energy, and then I pointed at him, and that was an energy boost that brought me to mile 25 before I started looking at the clock again. Wondering when this thing was going to be over.
I mean, so from 22, 23, then at 24 I started like obsessing upset. I knew we were going to make it. We were battling through.
See, I thought you were worrying about pace at that point when you were looking at your watch every 10 seconds.
No,
I thought you were worrying about our pace.
No, I was purely obsessing about distance. I was looking at the pace, but dude, I actually, to be real, I didn't calculate or know where we were at.
I know.
I had no idea. Outside of Eva at mile 16 saying you're on pace.
Yeah.
That's all I knew. I didn't even at mile 13 because I was in the belly of the beast.
At 13
I know you
you
paid attention.
I knew what we came through halfway at.
Dude, I had no idea. I was in a different, I was just not in, I was gone.
Yeah.
Like all I was trying to do is focus on how to stay in. So like I never even checked in because originally my thought was, okay, if we hit 120 at 13, we're bang on and we're going forward.
Yeah.
But I didn't even check in. I had no idea.
I know. And it's really not that hard of mental math to do. Like all I had to do is look at my watch at mile 23, 24 and just calculate, okay, we're running these average of 610. Like, are we going to dip under 240? Are we going to hit 240?
Yeah.
Or are we running 245?
Yeah.
And the mental math, I didn't go there because I was in too much pain.
Yeah. And so I was like not concerned about time whatsoever and purely looking at like trying to figure out how much further we had to go. What is cool about when you're running at that pace too, because the only time I would look at the watch, I'd get a little buzz and I'd look at the watch and you would see like, 6:02, 6:05, 6:06. And then you'd go back and look at the next, like focus up on whatever's happening. And then next thing I'd look, quarter mile's gone of this mile, right? Of this split. And then I'd look, we're at 0.6. So I like that component when you're going that fast and you've gotten into that cadence. Yes. You do start to delete those miles, right? Like pretty quickly overall.
Yeah, they come quick. They really do. When you're really, really hurting, a little slower, but at the end of the day, if you're running 6-minute miles go by pretty quick.
Yeah, the last two, that's where the obsession for me came, and those things dragged on like mad. Because what was crazy is we turned that corner, you got that boost like you said, and then mile 25 was we hit like a bunch of 610s. I think we did a 611, 610, 610. Like we from mile about 22-ish to 24, right in that range, maybe 21 to 24.
I would say 21 to 24.
Yeah, we hit like 610ers, about 4 seconds off our pace, right in that range. And it was funny. I remember talking to Eve after she saw our split and she saw 611. She's like, "Oh no, like are they going to drop off
they're trending
here?"
in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
because it's last 10K when the races
fall apart.
Are ruined.
That's where you go in or out. But then she started to see, okay, 610 again. Okay, 610 again. And then at least you know you're able to, if you go 611, 615, 618, you can tell the race is going to start to be over for you. You can't come back. But if you can hold, then you can maybe get a bump on the last two.
Yes. And that's what we did. I think we ran our 25th mile. We'll have to look at the stats. I mean, that was a big one. And that was you pushing. That's why I was still keying off you in those moments because you were looking at your watch. It was mostly because of distance.
All distance.
When are we going to be done with this thing? But in that, I thought you were looking at time, so we were just driving the pace as well.
Yeah,
and
I was trying to drive the pace because I wanted it to be over. Yeah. But what's funny is I was trying to drive pace, and all driving pace was maintaining pace. Yeah. That's all it was. If you think about it, pretty funny.
I know.
Yeah.
And then we got there.
Yeah, then we turned the corner, chomped a couple people at the last mile.
Yeah, actually, that was a cool stat. I don't know if you've looked at that. I think at each 5K marker, they have the tracks on the ground to give you your 5K split, but it also gives you your positioning, where you're at in the race.
No, I didn't see it.
I want to say at the halfway mark, we were in like the mid 400s, and we just continually trended upwards in chomping people. And
what did we land at?
Well, 310, 311.
Nice.
Yeah. So 150 people went bye-bye.
310?
Eugene Marathon, I nipped you at the line. I had to give you this one.
Yeah, by a second.
Yeah, hey, I don't know how that actually happened.
Hey, it's a game of seconds out there, you know.
It is. Yeah, one marathon to you, one marathon to me. I think we're gonna have to do a third one.
Yeah, that we are doing a third one, and we closed out. What I'll say, what's crazy, and then we'll pivot to what's next for us because it's been a long podcast on just the marathon. We're banking this one for our museum, our life museum, which it will be phenomenal.
Yeah.
The what's crazy about when we finished that marathon, and this goes back to what we were talking about originally. When you set a goal to break 3 hours, I was happy.
Yeah.
I was happy. But because it wasn't that scary for me, I knew physically that I could actually do it. I actually knew the goal was attainable. I knew if I trained for it, that running at 6:45 pace or 6:52 pace was a doable thing. It was attainable. So when I finished, I was happy, but I wasn't like elated. I wasn't like in awe. Almost. I wasn't in awe. Like, it wasn't like so magical that it was in awe. When we finished the 240, I couldn't fucking believe it. I couldn't fucking believe it, because the goal when we set out was so scary to me, so almost impossible in my mind. Like, although we trained for it, it just seemed so crazy to me to do something like to improve and run that fast when I'd never experienced. I mean, I remember we used to do Cooper tests, which is like you run 2 miles at 12 minutes, and that was like a
huge deal.
You're fucking fit.
Yeah,
that was the idea, right? And so what's crazy and what's cool and what shows me to continue, like what gives me another like life lesson in setting goals, is they're both marathons. But because one was such a reach goal, when it was accomplished, it was a true magical moment, a true feeling of a whole different feeling of accomplishment, right? Rather than, both are 26 miles. One was a whole different level of feeling than the other. And it's just a lesson to set these goals that scare you, to go after things that make you feel uncomfortable, whether it's physical, relationships, in business, in finances. Most of the time, like, we don't even want to put out there what we're going for, especially if it seems scary or like we can't do it, that it's out of reach at that time, because we're afraid of failing in it. And even if we would have failed, I remember you and I talked, like, because there's another doubt component. I was like, what's our training showing? Should we go out at 242? Should we go out at 245? Should we adjust? Are we good enough? Like, I was playing all that in my head. And finally, after talking through the scenarios, we're like, no, we're going to go out at 240. That's what we train for. And if we fail, we fail.
Exactly. Right? It's so well said. It's so well said. There's so many parallels to life in that race, in that marathon race. There really are. And I think a big aspect that I continue to think on and realize is, in those moments of doubt, if you were on your own, where does that go? The fact that we were able to do that together, we found someone that was able to match that energy, and we were able to piggyback off each other in those moments of doubt. Both had this huge goal in front of us, and to have someone there to support you while those moments of doubt sink in. I mean, I don't know that we could have achieved that goal without having
it's
a
undoable.
person next to you.
It's undoable without each other, and then the people supporting you, the fan, like the supporters, the people cheering for you, the people who take time out. Like, I think the one thing I was telling even our friends that were there, they were new friends of mine and old friends of yours. Let's call it, the impact it has when you come out of your little world, when you just hear somebody cheering for you for even just a second, like even that, it matters. Like Eva, without Eva, the race, both logistics, but the coaching, belief, the system, talk about trust the process, right? Just even that inevitably wouldn't have been doable. And so that, I think the point, what you're saying is, you have to have when you're doing these things, you have to have a whole village with you and there to support each other. And that's what makes the magic happen.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. Crossing that finish line was definitely one of those magical moments.
What's crazy too is, since we hit that goal and able to make that magic happen, now look at us where we're at and what we want to do now in the future. It's even bigger. Yeah.
What are the goals? Come on, let's drop the 2025 running goals for people.
This is for the people that are curious. We are going to go after 70 minutes in the half marathon. Yeah. And 2:30 in the marathon.
Yeah. So we're going to go Eugene half marathon. We're going to run 5:20 pace.
That's the goal.
Yep.
5:20 pace gets us to 70 minutes and a half. And then the idea is to go back for CIM in December of 2025 and hit that 2:30 goal.
Which is what pace?
5:43.
Yeah. And what's cool about those, again, is those also scare. They really, really scare me. What's interesting as well, though, so they scare me, but now I can trust the process.
You've been through that now. Yeah.
I've never been able to trust that before. But
the importance there is, you need to have that clear process. You need to have that clear process, because without it, then it's hard to keep that discipline in those really tough weeks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing. I couldn't agree more with you. Anyone could set out a big goal, but it's the meticulous planning of, and then the discipline and consistency of executing on that matter. Big goal, meticulous planning, discipline, consistency, and inevitably you will hit the goal if you do that. If your plan wasn't right, then you're not going to hit it.
Well, your plan doesn't keep you going when those hard weeks do arrive. Those really hard days arrive when you don't want to go out for those easy miles.
Exactly. Or if you had the big goal, but then you didn't plan right. Let's say your plan wasn't good enough. You could be as disciplined and consistent on that plan that you want, but you're going to fail because your plan wasn't good enough. You have to have meticulous plan, then have the consistency and discipline to execute on it, and that's the only way you can make it happen. And it's amazing how you can continue to level up those goals and dreams and continue to think big. And my challenge to myself and everyone I love and everyone around and everyone listening here, when you're setting up goals for 2025, the main thing you should think about is this goal big enough? Is this goal big enough to where if I finish it, I will be in awe of what had happened, right? Scared of the work it's going to take to do it, and in awe that it actually got done.
Yes, it's really well said.
And that's a goal I want to have, right?
That's what we have in front of us. Yeah.
Yes, that's going to be good. So we're going to do 70-minute half marathon Eugene, and then we're going to go and do 2 hour 30 minutes at CIM next year.
That's it. It's funny. It's in the universe now.
Yeah, I heard it here first.
Yep. We'll update you guys when they happen.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. We know there's a lot of good talking about just the marathon. Anyone who tuned in for the whole thing, we love you guys. It's a great one for the books for us. A lot of life lessons learned in it, and I cannot wait to unfold 2025. The journey of those things, for me, are usually the best as well. So I can't wait to go on that journey with you, brother.
Thank you, brother. I am right there with you for the next one.
All right, love you, man. And with that, we will see you on the next one.